Hi, welcome back to Genesis Custom Sabers. A couple of months ago, I challenged you to build your best in-universe Sabacc case, and I'm ready to unveil mine. Now I'm going to break this video down into two videos because I want to do as much as I can to show the step-by-step in case you want to do this yourself or something like it. The first video is going to be the inside of the case, and the second video is going to be the outside of the case. So let's get started. So one of the biggest parts of the job is actually just the planning and the layout of everything. Of course, I've got my Sabacc set here, and I've got these really cool credit coins that I acquired in an exchange with Afei props and replicas in Singapore, and they are really beautiful work. And I managed to get enough to do 4 sets of these beautiful credit coins in different colors. Now, of course, whatever you use for credits, it's not going to be necessarily part of your case, but your case needs to be designed for your set. And these are metal and heavy. So I'm going to need a heavy case. But before I get to that, these little carriages, I actually managed to build these out of, I don't know if you've got these kicking around your house, for those plastic black utility shelves. I had a bunch of extra of these, and I ripped them down on a bandsaw, drilled some holes in the back, and then used vacuum tubes, or a rubber tube. You can get this in an auto parts store or windshield washer fluid tube. And the screws actually hold into this and make little handles. So I could just make plastic durable cases that would hold each of my sets. So I've got these ready to go. I've decided to use this. This is a drill case for a DeWalt drill. I had this kicking around that I was actually thinking of making a backpack for Galaxy's Edge. Scrap that idea. This is a very heavy duty case with these secured in here. If I ever was to drop it, it's not going to break. A dollar store case, which may be great for a lot of projects, would just blow apart with this kind of weight. So I think this is gonna work for me. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to sketch. I don't know if you can see that. I like to sketch out just kind of like how the layout might go, where things might be placed. Of course, the bottom of the case is this end, so that the weight of these things is going to have to be, whoops, I'm spilling everything. It's going to have to go in the bottom end. I don't want the weight up here because if I set it up, it'll just want to fall over. The weight's got to be in the bottom. So you need to think through some of these things. And I don't know about you, but to me, a prop that is really well thought out and you could tell a lot of love and a lot of thought went into it, it just takes it to a whole new level, in my opinion. So I'm going to get started. The first thing to do is to really prep this case. I've got to remove all these little brackets in here. And one word of caution: when you do this, you may be changing the structure of the plastic, and so if you find that you remove all of that, it may not want to keep its shape anymore. So I'm going to cut out all of these ones. I'm going to cut out most of these and probably leave this bar here because foam is going to go in here, and I can, contour it around that. So just, have some thought about that. I'm probably going to work on the inside of this case before I really do a nice job on the outside, but I am going to begin to prep it. Project, even though we'll get to it later, I want to explain kind of the vision for the outside. As influences or references, what I'm going for are those scanning crates that you see in A New Hope when they're scanning the Millennium Falcon. They've got this dark, almost metallic, shiny blue with a black oval on top, some red stripes. It's going to be what I'm going for, but I'm also using a subtle influence, a nod to the 1970s era Kenner toy action figure Gonk Droid. It was a blue and white. I don't even have the toy. And it doesn't correspond to any specific Gaunt droid that looks like that in the films, but it's got this really cool dark blue, white stripe kind of idea. That's kind of what I've got in mind. So I've done a practice piece with the paints that I'm thinking of using. A dark navy blue, it's not metallic, and then a really light powder blue underneath as a primer with some metallic showing in the corners so it looks like it's metal. This is just a rough kind of mock-up piece just to see if my paints interact with each other. Hot tip, if you're using unfamiliar paints, try out a test piece just to get an idea of how the paints are going to interact with each other, how much dry time you need, how durable they are, before you actually commit to the project. Because if there is a flaw, if paints interact poorly with each other, you want to know that before you start messing with your project. Do you ever feel like you go out of your way to make a project more complicated than it needs to be? Well, I was thinking a lot about how these cards are going to sit in here and not slide around too much. I want them to be elevated from the surface. So I'm actually going to make a leather strap. And this is my paper cutout. I'm going to have it riveted here and then a snap here so that you can just pull the snap back and the leather will come back like that. I'm going to use this really lightweight leather and I'm going to dye it because I have a little bit of experience doing that. When you're working with leather, it's going to stretch. So I'm not going to drill my holes until I've actually got the leather piece ready and I can see how it's going to fit, how it's going to stretch. With dye too, I'll probably mention this later, you want to make sure that it's nicely sealed and finished so that it's not going to rub off on your cards. If you wanted to try something like this, you could actually find somebody who's throwing out an old leather couch or chair, and before it goes to the dump, you can just take a knife and you can just cut off some scraps of leather. And it's a really good leather to use for crafts of this kind. It's all finished, it's tanned, it's not gonna bleed, the color's not gonna run. So that is an option, but I'm gonna go the whole 9 yards and do my own leather strap with my own dye, if it works. If it doesn't work, I may have to come up with another option. Okay, so I'm going to upholster the whole thing, I don't know if that's even the right word, upholster, with this blue felt that I got at the dollar store. Really cheap, which is great because I've only ever done something like this once before, maybe twice, and I kind of half expect that I'm going to have to redo it after doing some learning. Use this 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. It's great stuff. Just a note, using this stuff, I would recommend using it outside, not necessarily because of the fumes, but because the little droplets that are so small and fine, they spray around and make this cloud of sticky goo. And it gets on your skin, you can feel it if you're wearing glasses, it's a nightmare. So I take off your glasses if you're gonna spray the stuff, spray it outside. So I had this, my MDF piece flipped over, I sprayed it liberally, brought it right in, and I had this kind of stretched out and laid down and I just slapped it right down and I've pressed it down. And as you can see, it's stuck. So the next thing that I'm going to do, and this is the tricky part, is I have to figure out how to essentially get these pieces to wrap around my cutouts. So I'm going to need to figure out where I want to do some slices with my knife. So I'm going to need to make some cuts and strategically, and then I'm going to spray the whole thing again, and then I'm going to lift up those cuts and adhere them, wrap them around every little opening. So I'm going to try with needle nose pliers. And so basically what I'm going to try to do is see if I can do with my fingers, get these cutouts into position to wrap around the MDF nice and snug. So I want to pull. Now this spray adhesive will stay tacky for a good long time, so I don't need to rush this. And I don't want to create wrinkles, so I want to do this slowly and evenly. And then, actually that's going to overlap each other, but that's fine. I'll just start doing the outside and just see. And then basically give myself a 45-degree cut there. Then I can scrape away the excess and make like a nice little seam. All right, I'm almost shocked to say it, but I think my first attempt actually worked. Looks pretty good. Some of the corners and stuff I might need to go around and doctor. Now, at an angle, you'll see there's these little exposed areas where you can see the MDF. I am undecided at this point whether I will try to cut little tiny triangles to fit in each one and then use an adhesive and meticulously go around, because those will probably just get plucked and worn off with use. So what I may end up doing is just getting a paint that matches this as well as I can, and just go in and just paint those kind of corners so they're less obvious. The adhesive does stay tacky throughout the process of folding over. You definitely want to do your trickiest stuff first while it's tackiest, and then later on you get around to the other parts that are not as complicated, and then it'll just go better for you. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out. I think with a little tweaking and doctoring, this is going to work. It's going to work. Okay, this is commonly called, I think, pick and pluck foam, because I don't know if you can see, it's made up of a whole bunch of little cells. And so you can just kind of rip it to size or cut it with a knife very easily. And then it fits in, and I've kind of measured this in my head. But I'm going to do a test because these are heavy and I don't want these to spill out when it's closed. So the idea is that once this is closed and locked in, there should be no movement. No, and I'm not hearing hardly anything. And everything's perfectly right where I left it. And this isn't even kind of finished yet. So that's just a really good way of testing that it's going to actually work the way you expect. All right, the inside is done. I've got my dealer token with the Arbesh D that I made, dice that I made, of course not part of this video. Then the snap, you take your cards out, you've got your rules for the game, and you can remove each of these carriages for the players. And you think that's it. Except, in keeping with the theme of this, what would a Sabacc case be without a smuggling compartment? And, of course, a vial of coaxium. Just for when the stakes get really high, it's nice to have a little insurance.